Welcome everyone to this webinar about simple tips to tackle soft plastics. And my name is Jo Taranto, and I have just asked a question in the chat. If you're watching this back, you can maybe ask yourself the same question. Have you participated in Plastic Free July before? Is this your first time? And if you've participated before, how did it go? So I've got a couple of people saying that they're returning and looking for new ways to reduce, which is often a familiar experience. And we've got quite a few people who are saying that this is the first time they've participated in this global movement and month of, I guess, challenges really, because every day and every step is a little challenge. So great to see that we have so many people getting involved for the first time and giving it a go. My name is Jo Taranto. I will be running the webinar today for you. It is my absolute pleasure to be partnering up with Plastic Free July this year. I work with an organisation called Good for the Hood, and we provide sustainability programs around the country through councils and through businesses and organisations. And I am one of those people who got involved in Plastic Free July about 8 years ago myself. And it was definitely a movement and a moment for me on a personal level, and also career-wise. It completely shifted my focus, my energy, and my excitement about solutions involving reuse. So from there, I've been working with ABC's War on Waste. I'm now part of a TV show called Planet Shapers, and sustainability is a huge part of what I do and how I live. And it's something I'm really passionate about sharing solutions with others. It's not always easy, and that's why you're probably here. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions where you think, is this really better than that? Can I do this? Can I do that? We're going to try and demystify and make it as simple as possible today. And also recognizing the really large systemic challenges about reducing plastics in a world that is fundamentally increasing plastic use daily. So it seems to be kind of a counter movement if you are participating in Plastic Free July, but that's entirely the reason why it exists. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Plastic Free July in a second, but I would like to acknowledge that wherever you are, that you are on Aboriginal land, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I myself am coming to you from the land of the Wallumattagal in North Ryde in Sydney, and I'm in my kitchen. It doesn't always look this clean. It's always got about this much stuff on the bench though. So that's a nice little invitation to my world. I'm a mum of 2 kids. I've got 2 very noisy dogs. I run my own business. I have a very busy partner and stepkids and all sorts of other crazy life logistics. So I recognize that doing anything in this world is challenging, but also that there are some things that we can do to make it easier for ourselves. So we're going to look at those today. I would like to know what it is that is your number one plastic peeve. Your number one thing that you're just like, either you can't solve it yourself and you're really struggling with it, or you just feel like it just shouldn't exist. It just seems like the most ridiculous thing to have that we've created as humans. So let us know in the chat your plastic peeve and what you know where it's coming up for you. We've got one already saying plastic veggies wrapped in supermarkets, absolutely, and organic veggies being wrapped in plastic. You're right. It seems funny to buy something that's fundamentally meant to be better, and then covering it in something that makes it worse. So absolutely. So keep those coming. I really love hearing people's frustrations. We generally have the same sorts of ones coming up all the time. I think I have a few. My biggest one at the moment is that I love eating Japanese food. I just adore it. Like it's probably what I would eat most of the time if I could. And yet I just know that even in store, if you sit down in, at a sushi train or a Japanese restaurant, that often there is a huge amount of plastic waste that's associated with that cuisine. I've got some examples of that here today with me. But it just seems, why is something so good ruined by, all the secondary impacts? So that's probably mine. My kids would love to be able to just grab takeaway sushi all the time, but I'm always like, just go easy because I know how much plastic waste will come with that, and it's all single use. Cafes serving takeaway cups is another one. It seems ridiculous if you're sitting in a restaurant or a cafe and all of a sudden you're brought out a disposable cup when you're thinking, I'm here, I'm here, we can rewash this. Or had you have known, you probably would have bought your own reusable cup, but because you're sitting down, you thought, oh no, they'll bring me a mug. So I've definitely had that scenario as well. It's often met by this look of, oh no, can I change my order? It's too late, it's already in the cup. Yeah, absolutely. Deli foods, cheeses and cut meats. It's very hard to avoid any processed food or any packaged food without coming into plastic. And it's very, very hard for us to, yeah, and the other one is plastic bags. We still see them, and I've got one floating around here. Them slightly thicker than they used to be, but particularly depending on what state you're from, you might find that there's a loophole in the legislation, which just means that you've got a thicker bag that says reusable on it, even though we know that mostly they are not. So definitely keep them coming. I'm sure they'll pop up for you as we go today. This session is made better by participation, so please let me know. The one thing I always find in our sessions is that the better solutions are actually coming from the audience. I can give you lots of hints, tips, and explanations, but to be honest, there's always something that comes out of the participants that is like gold. So if you're sitting there going, why hasn't anyone mentioned this? Please do pop it in the chat. I have got Anna joining me today on helping me with the slides. So I'm going to get her to move through the slides with me in a second. And then I think we've got Jess as well from Plastic Free July here as well. So if you've got any specific Plastic Free July questions, you can also pop those in the chat. We'll be sharing some resources, some things that you can do from the end of the session, because we hope you feel inspired and want to do something after today. I'd also encourage you to share this recording, which we will be sending out with friends, family, people who need a little nudge, colleagues, maybe your boss, someone who's thinking of getting stuck in to make some changes as part of either Plastic Free July or beyond, and revisit the resources from the Plastic Free July website, because there are a lot and they're really helpful when you are looking for solutions. I'd also encourage you, if you haven't joined a local War on Waste group or a plastic free group, that there are a lot of local groups that can help you. They can give you recommendations on special stores or products or places you can drop off recycling. They can talk about what their council are doing. It's a really great source of solutions at a hyper-local level, which will help you as well. We know that it's really hard to give specific examples when we all live in different parts of the country, but your local groups are a great source of information. And of course, your local council is critical. They have all of the up-to-date information about what you can recycle and put in your, if you have a curbside recycling bin, what goes in there. They can talk about, the best resources locally for collection, and also some tips on reuse and repair as well. So make sure you check out that. So Anna, I'm going to click through. I will just say that Plastic Free July has been a pretty global phenomenon, really, in the last, I think, 12 years, as I said now. There have been millions of people participating globally, not just in Australia, not just in, global north countries, like all around the world. We see huge participants across every nation on earth. And that's a pretty phenomenal effort. It started in Western Australia. It started with a small group of passionate locals saying, you know what, we could start a challenge. What if we just tried to, avoid certain plastics for a while? And it's grown into this phenomenon. So you're in good company. You're not doing this alone. And if this is your first Plastic Free July, there's so many things to help you and to make it a successful one. And if it's anything like my experience, it may just be the start of something really beautiful. So before we look at any solutions, we have to understand a little bit of the problem. We know that Plastic Free July has helped avoid 10 billion kilograms of waste to date. But we know that that is but a drop in the ocean when it comes to the plastic created and the plastic that is going to be created in the future. So we know that we can only get out of this problem if we fundamentally change a couple of things. One is legislation and global ambition around what we're allowed to produce and consume. And the other is our habits and what we can do in terms of using items, making the most of the products we have, consuming in a way that is fundamentally in line with what the planet wants us to do. And by not thinking that we can maybe recycle our way out of this problem. We know that plastic breaks up, not down. It gets smaller. It becomes a pollutant, not only for our planet, but also for ourselves. So Anna, if you click to the next slide. We know that there are huge issues from plastics in terms of health impacts. There's increasing information about the damage that microplastics do, not just because they are inert small pieces of plastic, but also because they are bonded with nasty chemicals which are endocrine disrupting. We know that they've found them in placentas, in testicles. We know that they are in our fish. We know they are in our food. We know they're at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, and we know that they are even in ants in the Amazon. So we have done a really great job of making plastic incredibly pervasive, and it acts in many ways like a forever chemical, which is a chemical that will outlive us, that will accumulate, and that will build up. And because it's got these nasty chemicals, plastic in itself is not necessarily nasty, but it's bonded with all these other nasty things. There are problems associated with plastic use, and we know globally that we cannot keep going on the pathway. We also know it's made from fossil fuels, which is a driving climate change. So plastic is a climate change driver, and it also is affecting, as we know, and the most recent people get involved with plastic-free July, it's also affecting our wildlife. We know that we've all seen the horrible images and of how plastic affects the animals that we care about, how it disrupts our ecosystems, what it does to our beautiful holiday destinations. And we also recognise that we're not doing a great job with recycling it. Most of us are really passionate about recycling in Australia, but we know that we're only recycling about 9% of what we have, of what we're putting in the bins. We know that it's costing us an immense amount of money, and we know that most animal species are already being impacted. So it's no surprise that everyone's looking for a way to reduce plastic. I don't know anyone who actually likes the look of plastic either. Most people know that this is not an attractive thing to have around, and people generally, when they're looking, you know, to make their homes lovely, they use something that's made out of glass or, you know, ceramics. That this is generally considered a fairly low budget looking item. So most people, when you're looking for luxury or nice homes, we don't want that stuff. We consider this to be really low value and pretty rubbish. So it's great to look at how we can not only reuse items, but also how we can avoid having these things in our homes in the first place. And recognizing that this is not the solution, but it is part of a solution. And that's what Plastic Free July's mission is, to get people to start looking at the solutions at your fingertips and also look at how that fits into the global picture of change as well. I'll go to the next one, Anna. We know that Plastic Free July has been incredibly powerful at moving people's behaviours. So we know that about 88% of people who participated have gone on to adopt a new behaviour. So if this is your first time, excellent opportunity for you to adopt at least one new thing. And you'll probably already have an idea of what in your head of what that might be. We know that there's a huge global recognition of Plastic Free July for, you know, Rebecca Prince-Ruiz is the founder of one of the initiators of that first plastic. I'm sure Rebecca didn't think that this was going to be such a success and have such global recognition. We've seen major airlines adopt plastic-free July. We've seen, huge schools and governments and, communities really embrace this plastic-free opportunity. Most people who participated, particularly through COVID, said that it made them feel better. It gave them a sense of social connection, of a sense of positive well-being, a sense of control, which is really powerful in a world where we see so many problems. So don't underestimate the warm, fuzzy stuff. It really is a great way to give you a sense of ownership and a capability and capacity to do something. And that's really what happened for me. I suddenly felt an agency in me, which I did not see before, which, you can overstate, but it really was an opportunity that gave me all of these new ways of looking at the world and meeting great people, and ultimately, shifting my career into this space as well. So it's also got a lot of global support, is that we recognize that people don't want to keep producing and proliferating this stuff. They don't actually like it. It's a side effect of something we like, which is convenience. But people don't generally like this stuff. I think the only people that probably love this stuff is the people who make it. But I think most of us recognize that it's the sad, side effect of living the way we do. And we like to have simple, easy, time efficient ways of living, but we really don't like that stuff. And so most people really are looking for a shift in the way we manage plastics and the way we produce plastics as well. I've had a couple more people say that they don't like hard plastic boxes for takeaway, and vegetables like cherry tomatoes and strawberries. And also we had someone commenting, Ash, about Tetra Packs. Not a fan of those as well. And it is hard, particularly if you're looking at something like oat milk or almond milk or soy milk, and that's how you've, wanting to use your milk, and your choices are sometimes Tetra Pak or nothing. I do have a solution that I could bring out for you, Ash, which I have been trialing in my house recently. So we can talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk about, yes, it doesn't break. You're right, Christina. And that's why it is important to weigh up all those other things. It is lighter to carry than glass too, yes, if you're walking home. So that's what the plastic, often we have to weigh up some of those considerations. We also know that glass, in its own way, contributes to its own emissions in terms of weight, but also what goes into making it. So we're going to be talking a lot about those payoffs today, recognizing that nothing is without its impact, and that there are things that are imperfect in every sense. I look at what's on the table with me today and what I'm going to talk about, none of this is perfect. But that's not the point of doing what we're doing. We are actually looking at solutions which minimize, avoid, and encourage reuse, so that we can slow down the production and proliferation of plastics, and so that we can create more awareness of the way we're living as well. We know that we're some of the most consuming people on the planet in Australia, particularly. We have high rates of use of fashion, which is full of plastics. We have high rates of, per capita waste production in terms of our households and our domestic waste. So we're pretty good at doing this. So it'd be great if we could start shifting that and really drawing some attention to what we can do. So what does it take to change? Anyone who's ever had to give up a habit or change a habit, what does it take? Anyone who's had to, maybe quit smoking or eat healthily, or, maybe give up the caffeine, what did it take? And maybe you can just include a couple of words in the chat and let me know. What was it that suddenly, was it a light bulb moment? Was it a piece of information that you were given? I can think of an example when I was pregnant, obviously being told immediately that you can't have certain things, whether it's food or, definitely no alcohol, can't eat soft cheese, those sorts of things. It was immediate habit change that had to happen. But there are other things that are not immediate. They're sort of an exploration, a curiosity, Or it can be that you've seen someone else do something and you thought, oh, kind of interesting. So what was it for you? Having an alternative on hand, yeah. So just realizing that, oh, I could do that, and suddenly giving something a go. We're going to talk about what it takes to create change, and that my job before I was working in sustainability was as an occupational therapist. Now, my role was to work with people who had been through a major life-changing event. Generally, that was an injury or an illness, but it could have been a big shift in their work career as well. I worked with people who had had catastrophic injuries, big traumatic events, but I also worked with people who were just fundamentally wanting to change because something wasn't working for them. And when we're looking at behavior change and habit change, there's a model that is quite often used in the health space, and flick to the next one, Anna, and it's called the trans-theoretical model of change. So we use this model when we look at people's behavior, and often we target an initiative based on what that takes at that point. And so most of you who've already decided you're going to participate in Plastic Free July are probably well on the way to preparation. You're probably going, oh, maybe this month I'm going to try this thing. But if you've never thought about change and you've just been sliding along thinking about, putting things in the bin and going, okay, everything's fine, sometimes it's not really that you even see that there's a problem. So when we're looking at change, often we want people to become aware for the first time of something that is either a problem or an alternative to their current scenario. And we call that the pre-contemplation stage, or the what problem stage. That kind of like, oh, I didn't really know there was the complete sort of absence of awareness, or an absence of awareness as it applies to them. Once people are aware that there's a problem, maybe they've spoken to someone, or they've seen an initiative at work, or they've heard about Plastic Free July, or they've suddenly realized that, what's going in their bin is not being recycled because they heard something on the news. Once there's that moment of increasing awareness or an invitation to step into an alternative, then we start to see an awareness which can open up the opportunities for change. Now, we know that awareness doesn't equal change and doesn't change our behaviors just because we decided that we heard something. Otherwise, we'd all be living very differently. We all know that there are certain things that are happening in the world, and yet we continue to live in a certain way. So it doesn't always amount to change at that point, but it is a very critical moment where you start to contemplate, oh, well, what if I did that? Oh, but that's costly. Or, oh yeah, I could use glass, but that's heavier. You start to sort of weigh up some of the ideas. Sometimes you might dismiss it on the absence of, well, no one else is doing it, or what, I'm just one person, that doesn't really matter. Or, oh, I heard from so-and-so that glass is just as bad as plastic. We start to kind of open our minds and sometimes dismiss behaviors. So if you're in that space, then it's a really great time to explore some of those ideas. But you're probably here very much in the preparation phase, which is the maybe I could phase, where you start to go, well, this month I'm doing it and I've signed up. Maybe every time I get a coffee, then I'm going to be using my cup. Or maybe when I get my fresh produce, I won't be using any plastic produce bags this month. Maybe you've started to already explore that. Or maybe you're very much into it already and you've been trying it already. Maybe you've been to the shops, or you've got your groceries already, or you've gone to your cafe and you've already given it a go. You're very much in the action stage where you've started getting yourself together and giving it a shot. I guess the challenge is sometimes between the end of this month and moving into that adoption of that behavior. But we've seen that most people who do Plastic Free July have continued some of those behaviors. So it's worth considering over the month. But I say to people, I don't actually care whether you adopt it long term at this point, because you've got to do something for a while, to play around with it, to explore, to be curious. I went through a point in my life where I actually lived as close to plastic free in my kitchen as possible. Like, I would say to the point that it was very frustrating for everyone in my household. I used to measure how much plastic waste we had each week, and I got very fastidious about it. And it took a huge amount of my time to go to that level of where we could call ourselves pretty much a plastic-free kitchen. I'm probably pulled back from that a little bit, partly because I don't have access to one of the stores that I used to go to. One of the suppliers I used to use is changed. And also I've become a little less, I have a little less time than I did at that point. Maybe they're excuses, but also I've adjusted for a period. I did definitely explore and go deep with those areas. And then now I've decided that, I can't keep that up because it's just going to drive me and my family mad. So it is worth exploring. And what we do find is that once you've maintained a habit for a while, it becomes a habit and you can sustain that. And of course, you can slip back and you can go, oh, whoops, managed to bring home that, or I bought that product which has heaps of packaging I didn't realize. But there is a shift fundamentally once you've explored a change. That's not to say that we don't lapse and go back into habits in different ways, but this is a really fundamentally great time for us to explore a behavior change and break it down into those steps. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that can help you next, Anna. And I love that Ariadne's mentioned giving up smoking and the cost that she saved on that, which is a huge thing. And also Anita's mentioned that it takes effort and mindset for the change. Yeah, there's something about that switch, isn't it? Of like, all right, I'm doing this. And that's important to know that doesn't just happen. There are stages before that. And once we can identify that there is really even a pre-contemplation and a contemplation stage before we've made that decision, it can help. Watch it in your colleagues and family members when you're talking about a change. Just ask some really exploratory questions. It's very interesting to unpack whether they A, identify a problem, or B, have kind of made up their mind about the problem already. It's worth a little experiment. You don't need to tell them you're doing it. So some tips for beyond plastic free July and even for the month is to start small. I encourage everyone to just choose one thing, but if you've already adopted one and you're ready to do more, great. But it's really tough sometimes to adopt lots and lots of changes at once. It's much easier to start small with something that you can manage. I would encourage you to have prompts. If it is something that is so automatic for you when you're ordering a coffee, for example, I know that's a very simple example, but if you just order a coffee and you always forget, you need a prompt. And often that prompt is before you leave the house, and it's also before you go to the cafe. So is that prompt on your bag? Is it on your phone? Is it on the front door when you're leaving the house? Whatever that prompt is, it could be in the car. Set up a little note for yourself so that you know, okay, that's right. And it will take a while for that to become automatic. And you can do that for everything. Next time you're getting fruit and veggies, next time you're ordering online for something, next time you're buying X, just be aware that there's a prompt at that moment, because there's these pivotal steps in the process, which if we forget them, that's when the change is not being able to happen. So it's okay to say, yes, I'm going to do it. But then if we forget that exact moment where we need to make the change, then that can be a problem. So have a prompt, and it needs to be at the point where that behavior is needed. So, and it might be multiple times, as I've mentioned. It is important to stay accountable. So we do know that people who make a pledge are much more likely to keep it. So there is a pledge you can make online through Plastic Free July. It helps if you say it out loud. So if you're a social media user, go on, create a little video, even if you just use it for yourself, or write it down and pop it on your fridge. This month I pledged to. It does help in the behavior change process. It's not for anyone else, it's for you. And it does help to write it down or say it out loud. Helps if you also say it to others, but that's another step. Sometimes that can be something you don't want to really talk to them about. We've got enough pressures on us as well. It is useful to track your progress. So if you do slip up, don't let that be your moment to go, oh, well, it's done now, I've stuffed up. Just keep a record. Like, yep, I said I was going to do this. This month I had 2 occasions where that didn't happen. Or, if you are watching what goes in your bin for the entire month, maybe you want to do a little tally. Maybe you want to just acknowledge that, oh, we had, half the waste we normally do this month, or, whatever it is. I like to kind of get a feel for what the bin looks like when I put it out. Oh, it's half full this month. Wonder what we did differently. So useful to have something to keep your progress going. If you're doing it as a family or as a workplace, definitely have a visible score sheet somewhere. Maybe it's on the fridge, in the kitchen, at work, or for the kids, something that they can add to as well. It can really help motivation. I would also encourage you to have some kind of reward. Depending on what that is, sometimes a morning tea is great for work. We do have the plastic-free July morning teas you can be part of. But yeah, what is it that would make the family happy? Maybe it's a movie night at the end of the month, and they get that if they do X. So make sure you prepare ahead. We know that that's important for all these things because, again, if you don't take bags, if you don't take cups, if you don't ask before you order, then some of these things will be decided for you, because you will find yourself in a position where you have no other alternative than what's been given or what you are buying. So it is important to prepare and use that as related to the prompts. And as I said, celebrate your wins, have a reward at the end of the month or at the end of the week if you need it, and use those things to help drive behavior change. They all work no matter what you're trying to change, but really help you for Plastic-Free July. These things are very, very low order decisions that we make. And as we all know, we make lots of decisions every day. If we make all of these really conscious decisions, it can be quite overwhelming, which is why we say start small. So just know that we have a lot of big decisions we make, and the simple decisions that happen automatically, there's a reason that we sort of push them down in terms of low order. We can't have capacity to take on everything. So anything you can do to minimize the effort in doing those decisions will make your life a lot easier and will make you have better success as well. The good thing is you're not alone, and lots of people have done this many times before. So there is a whole Plastic-Free July community. There is plastic-free communities all over the world. There are groups that you can join. There are whole communities doing this. Find them, talk to them, ask questions, get support, and get their advice, because people have done it before and they will very happily tell you how they do, how they avoid plastics in certain ways. All right, Anna, if we go next one. The other thing about Plastic-Free July is it's about cumulative impact. A lot of people don't participate in anything that involves individual behavior change because they say ultimately it's the smallest lever to pull, and ultimately it doesn't make that big difference. What we know about Plastic-Free July is that the cumulative impacts of all of these people participating each month for the last 12 years, it's really shifted the dial on the conversation. It's shifted the dial on what's happening in really large companies. Big multinational companies have shifted behavior and choices that they've made because of this movement. And that we know that when lots of people share their stories, share their tips, it does help. And it does help shift the message that we have to people like our elected officials, to people like organizations and companies. And in the time that I've been involved in sustainability, the products available on our supermarket shelves have fundamentally shifted. There's been huge change. And I'd like to think for a large part of that has come because there's been pushback and interest in doing things differently. And we're going to talk about some of those now. So just know that while it feels really small and trivial and probably a bit hopeless sometimes, that you're not doing it because it's one thing that's going to make all the difference, but because it's one thing multiplied by millions of people that really have to work for us to change the conversation globally. And we know that there is a global conversation happening, plastic treaties that are being drawn up. And that's why this movement is really important. All right, so let's get into the fun stuff now. I'm going to click through. And first of all, I want to hear from you what you think soft plastic is, because you came to this session talking about soft plastics. We just moved 2 slides, Anna. So we're going to talk about where we should focus our energy. So this session is about small steps to reduce soft plastics. What is soft plastics? I'm going to give you a chance to just jot some things down. You don't have to give me a formal definition, but just a few words, a couple of ideas. Where do you see it? And I'll keep an eye out for your... All right, it's slow going. No one knows. What is it? Not looking for the chemical. It's Glad wrap. Thank you. That's a good one. Plastic that clings to your food. That's a good definition. Something that doesn't hold its own shape. I love that. Something that can't be recycled. Absolutely. Anything you can scrunch or fold. Great. We're getting there now. What else have we got? Any other definitions? Does anyone know the plastics that go into soft plastics? And there's not just 1 or 2. There is lots of different ones. Anything like bread bags, cling film, confectionery wrappers. Yes, it's a mixture of different plastics. Yes, thank you, Ash. Yes, propylene, polyethylene, yep, or ethylene. Great. Oh, awesome. Now, my favorite thing, my favorite word, well, it's a terrible word, really, when you think about what it is, but soft plastics is made from a group of plastics called polyolefins. I'm going to say it again. Polyolefins. For some reason, it reminds me of a song that I used to sing as a kid called Nellie the Elephant. Every time I say polyolefins, I'm like, Nellie the Elephant. Anyway, ignore that. But polyolefins are a mixture of polymers. So we know that's polymers are what's in every type of plastic. And as Ash mentioned, there's a whole mixture of them. So polypropylene, polyethylene, and the soft plastics are just low density versions of that. So the difference between some items, the stuff that we can hit and that will keep its shape, and the stuff that we can scrunch and mold, is the density of it, as well as the type of plastic sometimes as well. So, so soft plastics is a group of plastics that have very specific characteristics. And we know that we've seen them all. We've seen ones with foil finishes. We've got some that are bonded to paper. We've seen, different colored ones. We know that this one's off some dry cleaning that have come through my house. Too much to my dismay, my partner likes to eat shin ramen noodles, which is just some of the worst things on earth. But full of packaging and with the foil cover on it. Bread bags, which is what this is. So we know that they're very scrunchable, they're very lightweight, but they are so pervasive. They're in almost every food on our shelves. We also know that we do see cling wrap as well popping up. And if you're into some really good greenwashing, here's a great one, a degradable cling wrap that sticks tight and is BPA free. Degradable simply means it breaks up. So yes, we do have a whole bunch of plastic types of products in there. Decorative stuff. Ooh, I'm not sure. Yes, it can be decorative stuff. Lots. I think birthday parties are probably the bane of my existence when it comes to soft plastics. Not just the ones that you hold yourself, but when your child comes home with a bag of plastic bits with plastic in it, with lollies wrapped in plastic, with with a cake wrapped in cling wrap, and you're like, wow, this is a lot for the 15 kids that they've all got those. So it is scrunchable, it is flexible, it does cover most processed foods. So but we know that it's also covering a huge amount of fresh foods in our supermarkets and grocery stores as well. We also know that they are really hard to recycle, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Partly it's infrastructure, so our recycling infrastructure gets tangled up with soft plastics. Partly is that, is it really worth recycling some of these materials? Because some soft plastics are really what we would describe as low value. They're really not very good even once you recycle them. So it's one of those things that, should we, we're not going to recycle plastic straws for a start, because, is it worth it And also we know that along the way, there's so many other problems from those items. So yeah, balloons, I guess they're depending on what it's made out of, are another type that has plastic, like a rubber or a latex as well. I love that, Christine. We've got some great solutions. Where it starts to become really upsetting for people is when we talk about the other things that have plastic. So we know that cans have a plastic lining quite often, including metal cans as well. We see plastic often inside jar lids, even a bag like this, which looks beautifully, material, and it's not cotton. So there's plastic in it. So plastic is ultimately unavoidable. And we know that, there's so many things that we'd like to sort of just have, but it's absolutely wrapped up with plastic, and then it's very hard to get plastic free. So it's not easy, but it is worth having discussion about where we should focus our energy, because that can give you some control about, what decisions are the best ones to make. So we'll just go to the next slide, Anna. So I am going to come back to our trusty hierarchy. When it comes to plastic use, I've modified Cleanaway's little plastic hierarchy here. Now, you've probably heard about the waste hierarchy, which is about where you should focus your energy. This is a modified version for plastics. So ultimately, we need to be looking at the top of the hierarchy, which is refusing. So, saying no to something, no to using it, no to buying it, no to being handed it. There's a very powerful act of saying, actually, I'm good, thank you. It happens every time I want to get I want to take away. I'll say, if I go to a restaurant and I've got extra food left over, I'll get my container out and someone will say, oh, would you like a plastic bag? No, thank you. I'm good. I don't need a plastic bag. I'll just carry it to the car like this. Thank you. Or I'll get you another container, or I'll get you some forks. No, thanks. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. So refusing those items when they're given to you, or not buying them. So reducing. So we'll talk a little bit about reduction in a second. That can be as simple as buying a slightly different container, or choosing a different product based on the packaging. And also, eliminating certain plastics. We'll talk about bin liners, for example, dog poo bags, those sorts of things. There's definitely alternatives that you can use. There is a place for repair and reuse as well. So there are some plastics which are designed to be so hard wearing and so reusable that we should use them if we have them already for as long as possible. Now, if you've decided to get rid of plastics from your life as much as possible because, of the health impacts, then, by all means. But if you have plastics like hard wearing, this is now in its 8th year, this Frank Green cup that I got many years ago. Who knew that they were going to become the amazing thing that it is? If you've got electronic items covered in plastic, this plastic should be reused and repaired as much as possible. They're not designed to be single use. Even this dustpan is made out of plastic, and we absolutely want to use these items for as long as possible. So if it cracks, I should try and repair it. Obviously, if I had my choice again, I probably wouldn't have a plastic one, but for while I have it, then I'm going to try and care for it and look after it as long as possible to keep the value that is there in it as long as possible. The front one here is obviously all our reusables as well. So we'll be talking a little bit more about why that's such a critical part to start at. But, whether it's chopsticks, cutlery, drink bottles, reusable cups or mugs, bags, we know that they're very easy items to avoid, to avoid those single-use items, which are the top, and also to encourage a recirculation of items as well, and a reuse. Recycling is important for some items. It's not the solution, we know that, but the container deposit schemes, which are in every state except Tasmania, are critically important. One, because these are some of the most littered items in Australia. and 2, because they do create a clean stream of highly recirculatable, is that a word? Plastics that can go back into their original item. So if you do end up with a little one like this, which my son got at an event, then make sure it goes back into the container deposit scheme or into your curbside recycling for recycling. It's not the solution, but it's part of the way that we manage those. It's also a very trusted system that works. So we need to use that. Whereas, some of the other products, I wouldn't encourage you bothering trying to recycle them because there's no end market, there's no place for it to go, and it doesn't make economic sense. So container deposit, absolutely, please focus on doing that. Make sure you follow the instructions and get those items back into the system, because there's a very good system that requires feedstock from these items now. So it's our job to get it back in there. And the last thing is that there is a place for disposal. And we have to dispose of items that don't have anywhere else to go. Otherwise, they will end up in the wrong place. They will end up dumped, they will end up littered, and they will end up contaminating our water, our pipes. If we flush them, they have to go in the bin and they have to go into the right bin. So there is a place for disposal while we still have items that have nowhere else to go. So make sure that if you are disposing items, that you're putting it in the right place. Don't wish cycle, don't try and find an end place for it to go if there's nowhere else to go. I know that it's disheartening when you try to go zero waste or you're trying to reduce that. So just be aware that that is a very normal feeling, but that is the place where we need to rethink. Could I have avoided that? Is there somewhere else for it to go? Can I write a letter to the person producing this and saying, hey, there's got to be a better way? You hear things like that about like blister packs and all these other products, and there are emerging models for that. But at the moment, it's not quite there. So, you can either try and get them collected, or you need to find the place where they are safely disposed of within our very effective waste management system. Great to see there's some questions coming in, Christine. I will absolutely make sure we do that. I'll look at that one in a second. So I want to just move to a couple of questions. Anna will just move. Beautiful, thank you. A couple of points around here. So we've got here, first of all, some bags. So I'm going to talk, not all bags are created equal, but the best bags for reuse are ones that you can wash. I love ones that are really lightweight. This is a plastic material, no question. I love my cotton bags. This is an old flour bag that I've used so many times as a bread bag. So would encourage you to have anything that can be washed, especially if it's going to have food in it. I big believer in having a water bottle, which who knew was such a incredibly popular thing now, to walk around with a water bottle the size of your torso. But if you haven't adopted a plastic water bottle, a metal water bottle, or a reusable water bottle, then now is your time. Absolutely getting rid of the single-use items, your cutleries, your straws, even having chopsticks, for example, are great for you to be able to dig those out and have them at lunch, or when next time you have a meal out. And I'm always a big believer that you should have a container in the car, clean container. And I've got my dog that's just decided to join me. This is Toby. Hi, Toby. You've got a bark collar on because this little guy is normally yapping about now. You want to join me for the rest of this? You're going to make it very hard. So having a container in the car means that next time you are out for dinner and you have leftovers, you can put your takeaway in it. It means that when your kids half eat a baked item from the thing, you can pop it in there. It really does help you to have a container that you can pop stuff in. Again, it's plastic, but highly reusable and able to be washed, and it doesn't break, which is a big issue for me and my family. They often have smashed more than one container in the past. I think we're just going to adopt this now. This is how we roll. Produce bags. This is a bag that has come from, I don't know if you've noticed when you buy bedding now, often they'll come within another bag. So This is just a produce bag that's come from there. So I reuse those. One of my favorite things to do is to use the pick and mix places within, maybe if you're going to Coles and Woolies, or a produce store as well. So you can definitely put, you know, loose items in there. I've got some black beans that I've been able to get from a bulk store. But this has had, from my son's birthday, fizzy peaches, which are not an essential item, I can tell you right now, but we were able to put it in a bag, zip it up, and he was able to have, I was going to say guilt-free, but I don't know how guilt-free it was, fizzy peaches in a bag. So you can, they're the scoop and load items. You put the tag on the bag and you can weigh them and pay at the counter as normal. So a lot of stores I know a lot of places don't have those, but if you do have them, please use them. The pricing is comparable. You can sort of price match a little bit, but it can mean that you can at least avoid some of the plastics that come with those items. And I've mentioned beverage containers as well. We'll go to the next one, Anna. I wanted to just quickly show you my favorite bin liner solution, and then I'll get on to some of these packaging items. So I don't know how many of you find bins really hard. In my household, we do compost and we do get rid of a lot of the yucky, what I would call the yucky waste. So most of our waste that goes in here is dry. If you have a lot of wet bin waste, then paper can be really tricky. A lot of people reuse plastic bags in this way, but in my opinion, bin liners are a really good one to try and phase out. You're basically buying plastic to throw it out, and I recognize that some places need to do that, but if you can try a newspaper or paper bin liner, it's as simple as having a square piece. So you can either fold it into a square, into a triangle, and into a triangle again, and you end up with something that's the shape of a pirate hat. Remember those pirate hats we used to make? And you can actually pop it over your bin like that. Now, that's not going to go very far, but I can tell you I have 7 people in my household on a fairly normal day. And because we do compost our waste and we do take out a lot of the other items for recycling, we get away with, you know, maybe this once every 2 days. We also have a bokashi bin for food scraps. So that has saved us a lot, and it meant that the bin still stayed clean. We haven't got any of that gross, yucky stuff. So a really simple solution to bin liners. I also am a big fan of paper bread bags if you get stuck as well. So I was going to say too, what we're seeing is a big shift in the packaging and the choices of home beauty and cleaning products. So I'm not sure how many of you, and maybe you can give me a hot tips on your favorites, but I've been trialing some dissolvable tablet solutions for cleaning. If you don't make your own beauty products or cleaning products, these are a really simple way of buying the product without water. So you can put them into a bottle, into warm water, give it a shake. I've got a old pump pack soap container. I don't even know where it came from because I didn't buy it, but I just put it in there for the soap, and I've got hand soap. So my kids are terrible at using the bar soap. It was ending up on the floor. It went hard. It was horrible. So we've gone back to using that with a tablet disposable, but there's almost every version of that in your supermarkets now. Very price comparable because, again, you can buy 4 at a time for the price that you'd probably get for a standard cleaning bottle. You can easily get plastic-free toilet paper now, we know that. A lot of dry ingredients will come in just a cardboard box, which is recyclable. So we know pasta, those sorts of things. And there's some dog poo bags too that you can, I've just got home compostable dog poo bags, but I've even seen people use paper bags for those as well, depending on how enthusiastic you are. So that's some simple ways of taking out some soft and hard plastics from your daily shop. A big one is snack foods. And my solution for snack foods is, if you must buy them, and sometimes, scenarios come up where we decide that we're going to, try to avoid the most minimally packaged as possible. And that generally means avoiding the multi-buys or the individually wrapped items. So if you're buying a packet of chips, for example, buy the large chips and put them into containers, as opposed to buying the large bag of chips with the 10 individual chip bags in there as well. And the same can be said for things like soy sauce. Now, I just want to give you this example. So if you go to the next one, Anna. Anna, you just go to the next. Oh, yes, thank you. So we've got a 2-litre thing of soy sauce, a 500 milliliter bottle of soy sauce, and a 4 ml plastic soy sauce fish. So, as I said, I'm someone who loves Japanese food. I know that this bottle, if I was to buy 4 of these to make up the same amount of soy sauce, it would have twice as much plastic as if I was just to buy this one. So what I do is I have a lot of, and I have space, so that helps, have a large container that we can decant into smaller ones, because no one wants this in their fridge if that's where you keep your soy sauce. So I will either decant it and pop the other one, or I will have that item at the back of the fridge, depending on how the fridge is full. I do the same for olive oil. I have the large bottle of wasabi, as opposed to, the tiny little packets. I make sure that, if the kids, we keep getting handed these little tiny Vegemites, you can see how quickly the packaging changes based on the size. So my advice would be to try and decant or buy a larger items if possible, because you will reduce the amount of plastic. And also, items like these are highly littered, highly contaminating for our waste streams, and they're rarely put in the right place. They're put in recycling, which, they're not recyclable and shouldn't be, because they're very low value plastic, and they really shouldn't exist. So if you know you're a frequent user of sushi and takeaway, then I'd encourage you to have soy sauce on hand, or ask the shop if they have a thing that you can just, pour from the amount of times I say, oh, do you have soy sauce in a big container? They go, oh yeah, sure. So it's worth asking those questions. But it brings me to a good point, which is getting to the end here. So we need to make news to the next one, Anna, is if you are going to go in and ask a business if you can do something a little different this month, it's useful to consider the following things. Firstly, if you're turning up with a cup or a container, make sure that it's clean. I think it's just respectful to do that. They have, the number one concern for them is that they're going to make you sick. Consider the size and shape. Now that we have water bottles the size of our torso, and you're asking people to, fill up the coffee, then maybe consider whether, a coffee this size is going to fit and work in that scenario. So be aware of the size of your reusable. If you can find a way of labeling and simplifying your order to help them, then that might be useful. The places there you go best. I would say that if you ask for something and they are rude, and they sort of are rude to you, or say no, or absolutely not, or you're an idiot, then just be respectful and polite and just say, look, thank you so much. And then if that's the choice between why you choose one place over another, then fine. But yeah, absolutely no reason to be rude to people on this basis. You're not going to change anyone's mind with rudeness. Also, I recognize that hospitality are doing it really tough at the moment, and most businesses are doing it really tough at the moment too. If you do want to go and talk to a business or an organisation about their plastic, choose a convenient time. My neighbour and I approached all of the businesses in our local area, all of the cafes, 200 cafes we went and spoke to. We helped divert 1 million coffee cups from our area back in 2018. And we made sure that when we went and spoke to the cafe owners, we did not turn up at the busiest time, or we didn't turn up when they were, under the pump. We chose moments which were convenient, and we often emailed her in advance. So just making sure that you're aware that if you turn up at the busiest times to have a conversation, they're going to probably lose their mind. And then also, you know, if you've got local programs, maybe they're linking them up with that so that they know that they're not just the only ones that are approaching this, but they're part of a group. Anna, we'll just move to the next one. Now, I've got some great questions coming in here and some suggestions. So now's the time for you to talk about your favorite solution. You've already got things that you probably haven't seen or haven't mentioned yet. Please, please, please give us your hot tip, because other people are looking for their solution, particularly Toby. He seems particularly interested in my apples. So we're going to take some questions now. Anna, while we're doing that, I'll just move through the slides, the last couple. Just so I can spend as much time on the questions as time allows, which is not a lot. There is a chance for you to take a pledge. So maybe your pledge is that you're getting rid of single-use cups. Maybe it is that you're going to try and reduce your soft plastics use by half this month, whatever you decide. There are pledges that you can take online, so check those out. And the next slide. There is heaps of resources. Now we're going to email these all to you so that you can find all the links. If you have not yet signed up for Plastic Free July, we'd encourage you to do that. And there's also a quiz on pesky plastics. There's the pledges. There's resources for a plastic-free morning tea. Heaps of stuff that you can get involved, and please use them. They work, and they're really fantastic ways of getting you and your community and organisation on track for the month. Also, this is a really great time to approach your local legislators, particularly the federal government are looking at a packaging review and reform. So if you're a local MP, it's a great time to write to them to let them know that this is important to you, that you believe there should be changes, because we know we can only do so much. But we are going to move to some of your solutions. This is the other one, my favorite, these great reusable produce bags. They're great for obviously fruit and veg when you're getting it locally. If you don't have a way of getting plastic-free produce through like a co-op or a food hub or one of those, and you need to go to your supermarket and you need to use plastic bags, then having something like this on hand is great. Also making sure that when you're looking at plastic wrap and you're tending to look at, ways that you need to use plastic wrap, there are simple solutions that are very low effort. And, we know that fruit and veggies often have a great outer covering that will protect them anyway. It's just the cut side that needs to be covered. So putting items down on a plate is one of my favorite things to do, putting a bowl over the top, and also reusing jars, bags that I already have. And probably the most bold thing I've done is going to my local bakery, which I have a pretty good relationship with, and getting them to put their bread straight into my bag without plastic. It's very doable, but I would encourage you to do it with stores that know you and that you're familiar with, so that when they see you coming, they're like, oh, here she is with a bag. You're not the only one who will do it, I guarantee, but it does help if you've got a relationship with that organisation. All right. How are we going here with questions? Lots and lots, which is great. If you do need to duck off, don't worry, I will record all of this and I can send it, but stick around if you can. Question about plastic bags from Christine. When I go to exercise or wash my face with a plastic bag, and I'm wondering what I can use instead of a plastic bag to put my wet face towel. There are some great reusable bags with a wet covering. Have a look in, particularly, they call them nappy bags, but they do have swim bags as well. So it's got a plastic liner, but it's reusable. So I would say if you're reusing that plastic bag multiple times, then you're doing great. You've already got the bag, it's already, but if you're finding that you use one for about 4 times and then you chuck it out, we've all seen the grandmas and the nonnas washing out their plastic bags on the clotheslines and hanging them out and doing that multiple times. Look, they are reusable. If you're gonna need something like that, you can keep doing it. But there are also wet bags that have a waterproof liner in them, and also sweaty clothes. They'll work well for gym clothes as well. Microfiber cloths to clean. How sustainable is microfiber? I hate these questions, not very, but I use them too. It's one of those payoffs, isn't it? We do know that microfibers sheds when we wash them. It does produce microplastics, but, you know, is it better than using the chemicals for cleaning? You know, I still have them in my home. So yes, they're not ideal, but neither is gym clothes. Neither is most of our clothes in our wardrobe. We have a huge issue with textile microfiber. I mean, with fashion and microfiber coming off our clothes. So when you look at how much of our clothes is plastic, you know, I would say if your microfiber cloths are working for you and you're not using a single user option, I'd keep going if it was me. But I'm sorry for the bad news, Maddie. Toilet paper wrappers are great for picking up dog poo. I love that. What a great solution. Yeah, so keep the wrapper. They're great to go in compost for a bit of carbon as well. But yes, I've seen people make Christmas bonbons out of them. I've seen people wrap presents in them. Not the dog poo, the paper. So yes, absolutely something can you. Pyrolysis. I'm assuming we're talking about it for plastic. I don't know much, but let me find out a little bit more for you. Do you mean in terms of recycling? I think that's the practice of breaking it down into oil, but I feel like I'm going to go off track if I don't. So look, there is processes for recycling soft plastics. There are. My question is that a reason that we should keep proliferating and making more plastics? No. So Rebecca Prince-Ruiz has always said that recycling will not get us out of this. We know that it is important, but I also don't believe that it should be the, you know, the answer to all our problems. So yes, there are some great advanced manufacturing solutions for soft plastics and plastics. There are, but it won't solve some of the bigger issues, which is that, you know, plastic breaks up, not down, that, you know, we can't recycle everything because some things should not be recycled. So I don't know if that helps, but I can definitely see if I can find some more information about pyrolysis. There is greenwashing. I don't believe the process is in fact greenwashing. I guess the question is, what's the payoff, the cost, and is it where we should be focusing our attention and our energy? Taking your container in your handbag. Oh, beautiful. I love that, Pam. Thank you so much. Less organics in landfill. Yeah. So a really important consideration is to not let our food go off as well, you know, because we don't want our keeping the food that we've got. So I love jars for for freezing, making use of the freezer space that we have and making sure that we don't let our food go off, even with plastic or without. We definitely have a huge food waste problem in Australia. My Jack Russell reminds me of, oh, thank you, Ariadne. I've got to the point where you can see it doesn't faze me because I just realized that it gets to a point every time I've tried to, I just go, well, it's just part of it now. Thank you. Farmer Cycle, yes, great for dropping empty blister packs off. Thank you, Anita. So yes, we are seeing collection places for blister packs. And while blister packs are still being created, which they will be for some time, and I know that at my household, we have one of my kids with significant medication use, and every month it's like, wow, we got another bag of blister packs. So dropping those back is great, but just make sure you're not potting them in your curbside recycling, and that's not where they will be recycled. Taking a fabric bag to the bakery. Yes, well done, Pam. That's so good. Saves the bag and the clip. Yep. If your only thing that you participate in this month is avoiding plastic clips on the bread bags, you can find paper bread bag clips now. So maybe that's your solution that you've decided to avoid. I actually made Christmas decorations with all the old plastic bread clips one year. I don't know why I had so much time on my hands. And thank you, Claudia. Great. I keep 3 coffee cups in the car in case one is in the wash. I love that, Julie. That sounds like the kind of coffee addiction that I have. It's like, I will not let this be the reason I don't get coffee. And it's great if you've got a friend with you who wants to have their first experience with a coffee cup. I love that idea of having an extra one because you never know who you might say, oh, can I get your coffee? Oh, do you want to use this cup? Make sure it's clean because that will really put them off. Yeah, great comment from Eva there about pyrolysis. Allegedly recycle soft plastics. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, uses pre-consumer plastic. Ideas for the Tetra Pak. Okay, sorry, Ash. Yes, good question. Now I have to get up and show you inside my pantry. So I've been trying this. It doesn't solve the plastic because it's still in plastic, but you can get it in jars as well. But I have tried a powdered and a paste version for nut milks and oat milks. So this is an oat milk powder. It makes 5 liters. The problem is that I've had is I've yet to find one, if someone can tell me, that is good for barista coffee, like to make good barista milk, because I like, to make nice coffee in the morning. So it does not froth in the same way. But you can imagine that's 5 Tetra Paks that would save. So a bit like when we talked about the soy sauce, the packaging itself is reduced even if you're still using plastic. So that's the idea. So that's Nimbus. Yeah, tried making your own. It's not good for hot drinks. I agree. Yeah, we've got the same challenge, Ash. So that's where we're going to land today. I really hope it was useful. I know many of you will probably be well and more advanced on your journeys than what we've discussed today. But please be part of the community conversation. Make sure that you share your positive stories. Tag Plastic Free July throughout the month if you have a win. Have some fun with it. It shouldn't be all doom and gloom. And just remember that reuse is a climate solution. Plastics are a fossil fuel, and that we have all of the things that we can solve at least some of the steps along the way in our kitchens probably already. I don't need you to go and buy anything new. So use what you have, play around with it, get your partner or your kids or your friends or your neighbors involved, and let us know how you go. I'll be sharing this recording. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Jess. And thank you, everyone, for being part of today. And make sure you keep your council informed as well if you take part this month. Share some of the positive local stories and be part of the global movement. Thanks, everyone. The glass jar is a keep cup. Yes. Yes. Just watch hot liquids. Make sure that you've got a spoon or something in there I have seen one smash, but it doesn't happen often. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.